What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at my homemade Batsignal. This is something that was one of the first props I've made myself, and it was quite fun. I did it in about a day. It's a really simple, easy build. I started off with the base here is a vintage Westinghouse glow heater from the 1920s or 1930s, roughly. You can see the plate here. This one was called a Cozy Glow. In here, where I have the light bulb now, was a ceramic housing, and wrapped around it was a metal wire, and when plugged in and turned on, that would glow red hot, and the copper dish would help radiate that out and heat you up very well. These apparently worked very well. This one supposedly still worked, but it was pretty tarnished, which was okay. You just polish it up like I did, which it needs another polish, to be honest. It's been a while since it's been cleaned. But the cord was completely shot, and I didn't feel bad for tearing it apart or anything. The base down here is actually, it's quite heavy. It's made out of cast iron. This is just some stamped steel or iron, I believe. And obviously copper dish. This is actually a Bakelite handle up here. And the process of disassembly and building this was actually really simple. I unscrewed and removed the old element. I made a round acrylic disc, painted it black, and glued it in place with a hole in it to hold the pre-wired candelabra base, which has a switch and everything. You just turn it the right way. There you go. Easy on and off. I screwed in the candelabra base bulb, and then I took some more acrylic and cut it out with the Batman logo shape that I wanted, painted that black with spray paint, and this had a cage over so you wouldn't touch the element and get burned. I took some of that copper wire from the cage and glued it in place down in there, and I tried super gluing it back to here, but it got too hot. It kept wanting to fall and melt off. So what I eventually did was JB weld that in place on the back of the bat. In terms of its functionality as an actual bat signal, it doesn't really project the bat at all. But it does work very well as a lamp. It actually will light up quite well. And that's okay, because honestly, I don't really need an actual projection of a Batman logo. But this is something that I grew up in the 90s. A lot of my friends grew up in the 90s. So Batman was really big back in the 90s. You had the animated series plus the 4 live action movies. I've always kind of wanted a bat signal. So for not a lot of money, I was able to make one of these. That's quite large. This is, pull out my tape measure. This is about 18 inches tall, and the dish is about 14 inches wide. So it's quite large, considering that the 2 replicas that I'm aware of, one was more vintage looking, one's more modern looking, from like, I think DC Direct put those out several years ago. They are actually quite small. I think they're only about 9 inches tall, so they really only look right, say, next to a 6 scale action figure or something like that, maybe 12 inch scale action figure. This being quite large looks a little bit nicer, plus I love the vintage look. It being, actually something from the 20s or 30s that's been refurbished. It looks, like part of a vintage museum collection piece. This is like the early days when Batman first started with a bat signal. And that's the look I was going for. I just wanted something cool that looked nice in the room and actually had some functionality to it, because this is actually the only lamp in here other than my overhead ceiling fan. So, I didn't spend a lot of money on this. I think for the base, the actual heater thing, I paid maybe $30 at a old antique store. And then from there, it was just, buying a can of spray paint, another $5 or so. Bought the pre-wired candelabra base for, I think, about $10. Package of bulbs, like a couple bucks. And I think the acrylic sheet was maybe like $10. Most expensive thing was getting a Dremel to cut everything out. It was like $50 because I just bought the cheap Dremel. But other than that, for $40 to $60, I've got invested in this. It's pretty neat. If you wanted to make one of these yourselves, I'm going to include my link from the RPF in the description about how my process of how I made this is a little bit more detailed. So if you want to make your own, I made a few of these for my friends who also are big Batman fans from the 90s. They absolutely loved them. Finding these is kind of hard. I've not really seen a whole lot of these, mostly because it's very recyclable materials. Probably some got recycled during World War II because, you know, the copper and the iron and steel. And just, you know, I've not really seen a whole lot because they worked good, but you know, obviously better heaters came along as the years went by. I've seen them online for about $100 just for an unmolested heater. That's kind of pricey. I don't think I would do it at that point. I'll probably just save up buy one of the actual more nicer replicas. But if you can find one of these, pick them up real cheap. It'd be a fun, quick, one-day budget build. Make your own little prop, and it looks really cool sitting on the shelf. So I hope you like that. Subscribe, and I'll be back with more content. See ya.